This is a really bad picture, and it looks just as bad in the book, but I liked it so much that I wanted to include it. This is right from the east side, from the lying-in hospital. Not now, they don't do it, but there was a time in the early 1900s when they couldn't, well, it was really the late 1800s, they couldn't figure out why women were dying right after childbirth. Basically, we know now they were infected, it was germs, and these germs were killing the women. And a lot of times in the hospitals, germs were spreading from women to women because there was a time when only poor women went to the hospitals, and if there was too many women, one hospital had a limit that after they would only allow up to 5 women per bed. So you could be in a bed with 4 other women in a bed.
One bed?
5 women. Yes, so then, I mean, that was the limit, you hope not to reach that. But, if you're lying next to giving birth, a woman that's really sick, it's not a good thing. But they didn't know about germs, so no one thought about it. But they did try all these other methods, like how come we have to come up with a cure for what they call childbed fever, which was just getting sick. Like you're healthy one day, you give birth, and then you're sick. So they thought, well, let's get a solution from the TB people. So at the time, there was the fresh air treatment for tuberculosis, which also didn't work, but we thought it did. Where, if you had tuberculosis, they'd send you up like Heidi into the mountains to air out and get better, and it didn't work. But whatever, gynecologists took that idea, and they put women on the roof of the lying-in hospital. So that's why I had to have it in. The picture's terrible, but you can see these women were carted up. And there's a case study that was written in the Lancet where the guys that ran this hospital talked about a woman that came into the hospital. She was young, in her 20s, healthy, and all of a sudden after birth, for whatever reason, she started getting horribly sick, struck a fever. They put her up on the roof. They starved her. Then they gave her things to purge her to get whatever poisons were in her. So she was fed water and whiskey and other things that would make her vomit and give her diarrhea, just what you need after childbirth. And they left her up on the roof for 40 days. Somehow she survived. So she was written up as, this is the cure. So it was like the whiskey starvation rooftop therapy cure. Yes?
There were Semmelweis in the late 1800s discovered that if you put on a pair of gloves,
yeah, but
that didn't spread to this country yet?
It did, but it was contrary. Semmelweis was kind of this obnoxious young doctor, and people didn't like him. And he did these really good studies to show that if you just washed your hands, you could really plummet the amount of childbed fever. And they didn't really know about germs at the time, but he did these, really well done studies. But he wasn't a good, he was a good promoter of himself. He didn't have a good way with words, so he wrote this up. He wrote this whole text basically saying how most doctors are murderers. And so it didn't go over well. And then he said, it's the filthy hands of doctors that are murdering their patients. So, and he was young at the time, and he had no sort of clout at the hospital. So his ideas picked up eventually. And they actually say, his story in itself is interesting because the fable on him is that he was so angry with people not listening to him, and he felt that doctors were murdering women, that he ended up going crazy and put in an asylum, and they even say that he might have died of a germ infection. I mean, it's a good story, but people think he had Alzheimer's.
Is this the lying hospital, New York hospital?
Yes, yeah. So go ahead, and then I'll tell you more about the lying.
I thought Florence Nightingale had some success in the Crimean War about sanitary conditions, but that didn't take hold.
It did, but every doctor thought that they were clean enough. It wasn't, the scrubbing. And then there were also thoughts, it turns out John Irving, the writer John Irving's uncle, was or great-grandfather, some relative of his, was a famous OBGYN. And there was a feeling around his day, because he wrote a memoir, John Irving's great-uncle, I think it was, wrote a memoir about what it was like. And he remembers, like, way back when, generations before, there was this feeling of, like, if there was pus and, like, infection starting, it was considered laudable pus, that there was curative, like, that was your body helping cure things. So when you were infected, they actually thought, that's suppress your immune system, or whatever they thought it was curing things. So there was a lot of question about what was clean, what was dirty.
They didn't sterilize instruments or anything?
Mm-hmm.
They didn't sterilize instruments?
No, there weren't gloves, none of that stuff. And actually, doctors weren't that specialized. Like in the 1800s, you could be doing an autopsy and then deliver a baby, and you didn't wash your hands in between. So someone was just telling me, someone just emailed me and asked if I wanted to be quoted in the story, and I said no, because it sounded really stupid, but like that they've given a name. I think Fox News wrote about like turbophilia, they're calling it, like women that are so scared of pregnancy, they're refusing to get pregnant. They're talking about now. I thought, no. Like women then, like in the 1800s, you should be scared to death. Women now, like, you might be scared, but you're not. That's
What
scary.
happens when you